What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Thursday Night Football Prelock Show here on RotoGrinders. Happy to be with you as we get kick-started here in week number 13 with the Bills and the Patriots in what should be a competitive Thursday night game. Both of these teams with division title aspirations, playoff aspirations, and a pretty important game in terms of the playoff race, which is starting to take shape here over the last couple months of the season. So we'll break it down for you from a DFS perspective tonight. And to help do that, I am Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84. I've got TJ Zwarych alongside as well. TJ, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well in a real showdown mindset. Got this show, already did the NBA single game showdown pre-lock show with Dre. And so I feel like I did the 2 expert surveys. I feel like I'm in my showdown zone before we switch things up before the FanDuel Friday shows we got going on tomorrow for NFL and NBA. But it's a showdown day with only one NBA game and now one NFL game. And these single game NFLs have been pretty kind to me so far this year, and so looking forward to hopefully keeping that going.
We'll see if we can't do that here tonight with this game. The biggest injury news that we were waiting on throughout the day was Jakobi Meyers. He was questionable, but he is good to go. So if you were concerned about plugging him into your lineups, obviously there's some risk given that it's a shoulder injury of re-aggravation or something like that. But he is active. And seems like he will be good to go. So that's really the only injury news we're looking at. Anything else on the news front or angles that you have changed throughout the day as a result of any sort of player news?
No, not really. Same strategy as I was kind of planning on going with earlier in the day today. Every single lineup I have will have either Josh Allen as the MVP or Josh Allen in the flex. We'll be going 100% owned there. And then we're going to try and find some ways to mix and match, differentiate throughout the rest of the lineup. But it's going to be a big Josh Allen day for me today.
All right. Well, we can start by talking about our potential captain selections here on DraftKings. Obviously, if you look at our ownership, we do have Ramondre Stevenson with slightly more ownership than Allen in the captain. On DraftKings, it's primarily because of the discount. Allen is 18.3 in the captain, which might be the highest showdown salary we've seen this year. If not, it's close. And if you put Allen in at captain, you've only got $6,300 per player for the rest of your spots. So perhaps that's why more people are going to Stevenson. But, I mean, you just kind of said you're going to lock Allen into all your lineups. So you're comfortable with that salary there on DK and being able to make the rest of that lineup work, it sounds like.
Yeah, so especially the way I'm kind of looking at this is I think Allen has so by far the highest upside and ceiling on the slate, just based on if the Bills are blowing them out, then it's likely going to be on his legs and his arms that are getting him there. If New England starts doing something and ends up surprising people and taking a lead, well, then Josh Allen's going to have to be doing a lot to get them back into this game. And so I am comfortable paying that salary for Josh Allen there. And then if I'm looking to differentiate in tournaments, when we sort by percentage owned, it's like you said, we have more people going to Ramondre Stevenson and still double-digit people going to Stephon Diggs. And honestly, neither of them are that big enough of discounts for me to really have that much interest in doing that. In tournaments, if I'm going away from Josh Allen at the captain position, don't get me wrong, if I'm running a lot of lineups, I would have a couple Diggs teams there since I'm locking in Allen. If I'm not playing him captain, I'll play him flex. So I'd put some Diggs teams at captain as well. But running a few Mac Jones captain's team, Jakobi Meyers having a big salary saving type thing, putting him there, or even a Devin Singletary or a Gabe Davis, those would be my top options to use as a captain. And if you're running 150, I even think you include some Bills defense or Isaiah McKenzie MVP teams in there as well. And so I think my favorite way of pivoting in tournaments at the captain position would be getting away from Stevenson and Diggs, the other two highest owned captains. And if I'm not playing Allen there, differentiating with somebody like Singletary, Gabe Davis, or even a Jakobi Meyers.
Does the Myers injury worry you at all? You think he's completely good to go. I mean, I don't have any concerns, but might be a question that some people ask on whether or not we feel safe with Myers there tonight.
I still trust him. Like if I was running 150 lineups, I personally would try and get maybe slightly overweight to all of these Patriot receivers, especially on DraftKings. Like Tyquan Thornton at $400, sorry, would probably be my favorite. It's Bourne at 2,200 and Aguilar at 48. I'd want to get over the field on, just based on like it's always one of these guys outside of Myers that has a big day. It's always Myers and one other guy. Sometimes it's Aguilar with a bomb. Sometimes it's Bourne with a bomb. Sometimes it's Thornton on a random handoff. And so those are the I wouldn't mind going with some of those guys, mixing and matching in with them, but Myers is definitely the one I'm most confident in today. He's got a nice, cheap price tag on him. I don't like him as much as I do Gabe Davis in tournaments, but I still am confident getting to him today.
All right. I kind of agree on the thought process behind those guys being the differentiators at captain if you're not playing Allen. Certainly Allen has the highest projection. We've got him projected, a good couple of points above everybody else. But, I can understand some people possibly having some trepidation with Josh Allen given, he has been having a few turnovers lately. He's been banged up. I get it. But still projects very well and had an extra few days to get ready for this game after they played on Thanksgiving the week before. So it's not like a true short week for Buffalo, for both these teams. They played on Thanksgiving and now they're playing again this Thursday. So it's really been a full week for them. All right, let's pivot and talk about quarterback exposure. Obviously, you're locking in Allen in every lineup, whether it's captain or flex. What do you think about exposure to Mac Jones tonight?
Probably not going to get a ton of Mac at the flex position for me today. I'm either going to MVP him, captain him with a bit of a Patriot stack and Allen in the flex position somewhere, or I'm probably just going to go with the outright fade today and just have one or two New England pass catchers as the only players in my lineups.
I don't hate it if you're going with the game script that New England falls way behind. I mean, I think their defense is good enough, obviously, to keep it close, but you saw what Jones did on Thanksgiving against the Vikings. I think that might leave him a little bit over-owned tonight. So I agree. At 37% ownership, I'll probably be underweight. Just prefer getting exposure in other ways. So let's talk
it's just
about
like the price that he's at too. I'd rather get it 1K more up to Ramondre Stevenson, who should be very involved in the run game if it's close and in the pass game if they're coming from behind, as long as it's not a blowout. And so I'd just rather pay up 1K more for him, or I'd rather save over $2,000 for Jacoby Myers, or save a ton of money for one of the cheap pass catchers.
Yeah, salary, and if you're playing a lot of Allen, obviously salary certainly comes into play for sure. Let's talk about the running game separately for these teams. So with the Bills, you got Singletary, reasonable price at 7K. James Cook, 3,600, has been getting a few carries. Hines will get some passing down snaps, but Cook only got 2 carries against the Lions on Thanksgiving. So how is your interest in the running backs for Buffalo tonight?
Pretty high. I don't have a ton of interest in Hines. I just kind of would rather go Cook. Hines seems like somebody who's more of a vet they're willing to rely on if guys are banged up in playoff safety blankets, as opposed to somebody with a ton of explosiveness they're trying to use a lot. So I love James Cook today in tournaments. In cash optimal situations, I love pairing Singletary with Josh Allen as the MVP, because I think with that affordable salary there for Singletary, pairing them both together, it gives you a really nice floor. And then in tournaments, I love James Cook as a salary saver, and I will definitely have Devin Singletary on every lineup that Josh Allen is not my MVP.
Getting exposure to at least one primary element of the Buffalo offense certainly makes sense. And like I say, that price tag isn't that exorbitant, especially when you consider that Stevenson is 10,400 on the other side. That being said, he basically has become the guy in the New England backfield, and even in the passing game, 8, 8, 7, 6, and 10 targets the last 5 games. So it's weird to see Belichick using a guy as a true feature back, but that's what Stevenson has become. You look at his floor, 20, 14, 16, 21, 24, 25, 23. So he's been very safe, and that's why, I mean, we're seeing heavy ownership on him. Remember, we had him at higher ownership than Josh Allen in the captain spot tonight. So what are you doing with Stevenson?
Yeah, the way I personally like to start my cash lineup on DraftKings today is going Allen and the captain, and then Stevenson and Singletary, both in the lineup as well, and then looking for some salary savings elsewhere. Or if I'm fading Singletary, just going with the slightly tournament more minded approach and putting in Cook in there. But I think in tournaments, especially if you're entering a lot of lineups, there on DraftKings specifically, there's no one more interesting on this slate than Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. Just going on the basis that you're fading Ramondre Stevenson, either the Buffalo just keys on him and he can't get it going. This turns into a blowout, and Strong and Harris pick up a bunch of garbage time backfield touches at $200. As the lead healthy back, maybe Stevenson rushes them all the way down the field and is tired and he gets vultured on a 1-game slate when guys when they're missing Damian Harris and the 2 immediate backups are only at $200. You don't see that very often. Like, you look at this Buffalo team and the backups are James Cook at $3,600 and Nyheim Hines at $3K. And now, while they're expected to get more touches as opposed to Ramondre, like in comparison to Devin Singletary, whereas Ramondre Stevenson is getting a lead back role tonight, if something happens to him, or if this game just turns ugly, this game turns into a blowout, then one of these $200 backs could easily make their way into the optimal lineup by catching 2 or 3 passes, by vulturing a touchdown and breaking the slate at that price. So I think these two are some of the most interesting pieces on DraftKings. And then even if we're not feeling comfortable with those two specifically, the super, super cheap prices of some of these players makes me very interesting in just doing this Josh Allen captain and just loading up on my Ramondre Stevenson and worrying about salary later. Because if we pivot off of running back, we look to the receiver position. We got Tyquan Thornton at $400. I'd be willing to take a shot on. We got Khalil Shakir at $200, who, if I have Josh Allen in my lineup, he's probably someone I'd be more willing to take a shot on than Thornton. But then even if you look at the tight end position, Hunter Henry had a great week last week. But prior to that, Jonnu Smith had been seeing more snaps for consecutive weeks in a row, and Henry just happened to be the one who got the touchdown looks last week. I think Jonnu Smith at 1.4K on DraftKings is a very interesting salary saving option. Someone who before last week had 4 targets in 3 straight games.
Yeah, I've done enough of these showdown shows with you now that I know that you like the punt pass catcher to, you get that one big catch and they're, $200, $400, $600. And if you're jamming in guys at the top, it certainly helps make the rest of that lineup work. So if you
For me, it really depends on the teams. Like, if there's a concentrated pay up that I know I want to pay for, that like I just feel like you have a lock and load 25 points from Josh Allen today, I would rather, and same thing with in a cash scenario with Ramondre Stevenson, like, he's, unless this game goes crazy or he gets hurt, he's getting 25, 30 touches in this game. And so I would rather just take that floor, that concentration, and get the cheap spots and take the cheap guys and hope, because as long as I have the big scores, I'll probably hit the min cash and a cash line. And if these cheap guys happen to get a touchdown or a bunch of yards, that's how you take down a tournament along with it.
Yeah, and it's a hard concept for a lot of people, myself included at times, to you got to embrace the variance in these formats a little bit. And it's tough until you get used to it that, yes, there are going to be times where these punt pass catchers score 0 and it happens. But the times where they do score, a healthy chunk of fantasy points, and you've got them at $400, and they score 12 or 14, and then you've got high dollar plays that go along with them. Those are the kind of ways you can differentiate yourself on these showdown slates, particularly with a team like New England where they're really going to spread the football around. It's not like Myers is this wide receiver one that's going to get 15 targets guaranteed on a weekly basis, and Parker is inconsistent, and Aguilar is inconsistent, and Bourne is inconsistent. Like all these guys, they'll run 6 wide receivers in mix and match them throughout the game. So taking a shot on a Thornton or a Shakir on the Buffalo side doesn't feel great, but you notice what it does to the rest of this lineup. Like if I put Thornton in here or Shakir, suddenly I've got $7,000 for my last 2 spots.
I get to mess around with the McKenzies, the Davises, and the Jacoby Myers again.
Or even if you get Smith in there, you got 2 punts and you got enough to get Diggs. So, it's all a matter of how you feel about wanting to get those high-end plays in there.
And from a cash perspective, I would prioritize the mid-range cheap value. So guys like Aguilar, Cook, both defenses, and both kickers. Like I think those are fine last pieces from a cash game perspective that still fit the build of loading up with Allen, Singletary, and Stevenson. And then in tournaments, I still like starting that way, or maybe getting rid of Singletary in a tournament. But I think the way to differentiate are those cheap New England backs, or just any of these $200 to $400 range players. I kind of like sticking with a Jonnu Smith and above for cash, and then going with the 200, 400 range for tournaments today. But it's a bit of a different conversation on FanDuel, where we don't have that same type of crazy value where it changes our entire lineup.
Yeah, we'll pivot over and talk about FanDuel in just a second, and the salary floor does tend to make a difference over there. TJ kind of mentioned the defenses and the kickers briefly. Buffalo's defense is expensive. Curious to see if that keeps the ownership down a little bit. It's cold weather now, so maybe longer field goals are a little bit tougher, but you can always use the kickers as a kind of a last piece if it fits in your lineup. Do you have a preference on kind of we didn't talk about the Buffalo, the more expensive pass catchers all that much, but Knox, Gabe Davis, Diggs. I mean, you got Allen in a ton of lineups, so how are you handling your exposure to some of those higher end Buffalo receivers?
It depends mostly on my lineup construction, just based on if I'm mixing in those $200 to $400 guys, then it's like, heck yeah, I'll mix in some Stephon Diggs in there. But primarily how I'm looking at things today is if I'm only building one lineup and it's a tournament style lineup, I think I'm going to save some salary, not play Stephon Diggs, and hope this is a Gabe Davis or Isaiah McKenzie game today. Try and get overweight on the 2 of them.
Yeah, they tend to be a little more accessible as well, a little easier to fit in those lineups and make it work. So, well, if you are interested and want to get your questions answered throughout the show, please hit the thumbs up button. We appreciate that very much. In the YouTube channel, helps us beat that YouTube algorithm on that YouTube feed, and subscribe to the channel. If you like what you see, you can get notifications whenever we go live. We do these pre-lock shows for every Island game: Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and also as I pivot the screen share over to a FanDuel here, we'll talk about that. But don't forget about Stat Hero. If you have not heard of Stat Hero, it is a unique fantasy sports platform which allows users to compete only against the house and not the other players in a contest. You can participate in head-to-head style contests where Stat Hero provides a lineup which you have to beat with your own, and then pick'em style contests as well. And you can check out the Big Dime League, a season-long leaderboard contest with up to $50,000 in prizes, which you can enter all season long. First-time depositors will get you a 50% bonus up to $250 with promo code Grinders, as you can see there on the screen. Now we also have a little unique format up there tonight where this pays 20x if you can pick a combo that beats Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, who are projected. They've got projected for about 47 points. If you can find a combo that beats those two, you can get 20x on your money. And TJ was talking about this with our producer Steve before the show. Why don't you go through kind of what your logic might be in something like this? Because I thought it was interesting.
When you get players who by far are the consensus to be kind of the top two, and you can't pick a combo of the same two players or use either of the same players, my thought process is, okay, even if I need to pick something suboptimal, what will correlate most likely to the guys I'm competing against failing? So it's the two running backs in this game, both who could be involved in the passing game, both who'll be involved in the running game if this is a close game, and if they happen to be the ones who score the touchdowns today, it could easily happen. Say if Josh Allen's touchdowns are dump offs to Singletary or even passes to someone else that aren't Diggs. As long as Stevenson continues to get tons of touches, if Singletary happens to get one or two of the touchdowns, this is a way that we could match or ideally best the lineup combo of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and obviously it's not going to project to beat Allen and Diggs. That's why you're getting 20x on your money if you hit it. It's not like you're supposed to be able to do it every other time or with any sort of ease. So outside of rooting for injury, I think that's a very good strategy and something you can use over there in Stat Hero. So check them out. And again, promo code Grinders to get yourself that bonus if you are a first-time depositor. All right, let's talk about FanDuel here. We've got about 9 minutes left until lock. Again, we can check for questions here in a minute. But you mentioned we don't have that $200, $400, $600 salary floor on FanDuel. Are we still locking in Josh Allen over there?
Heck yes, because we're not worried about the salary difference at the MVP position. We only care about getting the highest scoring player there. So for optimals, it's definitely Josh Allen. Me personally, I'm still not looking to differentiate too much in tournaments, but it's the same strategy. In large field tournaments, I don't think I'd want to play Stevenson or Diggs. I'd want to get more different with somebody like a Devin Singletary, Jacoby Myers, or Gabe Davis in that MVP position. Heck, even Isaiah McKenzie or Bills defense, if I'm playing a lot of lineups, why not? But in optimals, I think you're still going with Josh Allen in that MVP position. And then we don't have the $200 type salary saving options for us over here, but we do still have a lot of players who are very cheap. So I think the next place we look to save some salary over on FanDuel is a guy like Dawson Knox, who's 8,500. We know he's going to be on the field, and it's a nice source of salary saving when we have over 10K per position left. Just getting that in there so we can still look at some of the pay up options are on the board here. Now, with Stephon Diggs being all the way up there at 15K, we're basically looking at the realm where unless we want to completely pay down for somebody at the 5K, you basically have to pick and choose between Stevenson or Diggs. It's worth mentioning that I think it's a totally reasonable approach in cash games today if you wanted to just go with Allen, Stevenson, and Diggs, try and take the floor and take Knox out of there. Just go with Allen, Stevenson, and Diggs. You take your floor of more than likely, the odds say for sure, the three highest scorers on this slate. And then you have 6,750 to choose between a variety of options. Shakir at 6K, Jonnu Smith at 6K, Hunter Henry at 6'5", Aguilar at 6'5", Hines at 7, Bourne at 7. And so for me personally, I'd probably want to look at, from an optimal perspective, some guys like Smith or Henry and then an Aguilar in there, and just really get my top scoring guys in there locked and loaded. And then from a tournament perspective, you could even just look at keeping a similar style lineup with that build there. You sub out Stevenson, sub in Mac Jones. You can use one of these cheap running backs as your value in that tournament. But I think this, I spoke too soon with Knox. I think the Stevenson, Diggs, Allen route is the route I'd want to take it in optimals. And then in tournaments, I personally just like doing different variations of the Buffalo full stack. Do a Diggs fade where I play Davis, McKenzie, and somebody else, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Davis, McKenzie, get Stevenson on the other side. Plenty of options in that $8,000 range for your last spot. even though Josh Allen is expensive, the cap doesn't become an overburdensome thing on FanDuel. I mean, even though we pulled Knox out of this one lineup, like he's fine at 8,500 as well. If you did this kind of Buffalo stack, you can put Knox in there if you want instead of McKenzie. Gives you 9K for your last spot. The kickers are both around 9K. The defenses, New England's 9K, Buffalo's 10K. So still plenty of options to round out your lineup. And you've got Allen in there. You got Stevenson in there. You got a couple Buffalo pass catchers in there. And it works out pretty well. Other thoughts for you in general here on the FanDuel side?
I'm more likely to keep it, like, I guess, like, I don't even want to say more balanced, because like we showed, like the Stevenson, Diggs, and Allen route, like it works in a cash type scenario as well. So for me, FanDuel is just kind of more straightforward. I think the easiest way to differentiate is going to be to just leave a bunch of salary on the table. Like, I think that's going to be the best way to get yourself quite different today. And just think, hey, maybe it's a day that Josh Allen throws 4 touchdowns and they're all to like his random tight ends and fullbacks, that kind of thing. But the other person that is a cheap value piece that we didn't really talk about in the lineup building portion on FanDuel, that is kind of one of my favorite ways to get different today on FanDuel, is going to be James Cook.
And Cook on FanDuel is 7,500. So I do want to show, we had somebody asking in the chat about the optimal roster construction. I'll give you a little peek behind our premium tools here at RotoGrinders. Check us out, rotogrinders.com. And you can get yourself a premium subscription if you like this sort of stuff. But we do basically the sim tool that simulates the game, thousands of times. And based on those simulations, what would the optimals be? And so obviously in a game like this, it's expected to be close, competitive. The optimals have generally said, the projections, that the winning lineup will contain 3 players from each team 35.67% of the time, 4 players from the winning team 21% of the time, 5 players from the winning team 6% of the time. And then, you have to understand, though, that more people tend to do the 3-3 builds as well. So you make your lineup a little bit different if you do that, say, 5-1 type of build. And then captain usage by position is another item in this chart. You can see the orange bar is the optimal. The blue bar is what the field ownership projections are. So, for example, the top column there, or the top row there, is RB1. You can see that it's optimal in our simulations 41% of the time in captain, and the field is only doing it 32% of the time. So perhaps some ammunition there for using a Stevenson or Singletary in your captain tonight. And then it goes down to break this down by individual player, by captain usage and flex usage as well, with the orange bar for optimal and the blue bar for projected ownership. So
straight up QQ for you for FanDuel cards. Who do you like better for a GPP? 2v2, Stephon Diggs and Jonnu Smith, or Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie with Josh Allen as your captain?
I'd go Davis and McKenzie, I think, if that lineup doesn't have Diggs, and then you hope that Diggs has a quiet night.
Yeah, that was kind of my main thought as well. But if I'm being real, I just split my lineup into 2 and did the smaller field. I did the smaller field one with Stephon Diggs and the larger field stuff with McKenzie and Davis.
Don't mind either type of lineup for sure, but I would lean towards the Davis-McKenzie one as well. All right. Do you have a lean on the cheap New England running backs if you had to pick one? And obviously this is more of a DK thing because on FanDuel it's not really necessary, but Harris or Strong?
I truly have literally no idea. Like, our RG projection has them for a full point difference, so I guess I'd go Harris, but if that means lower ownership for Strong, like the Blitz only has them projected by a half a point difference. And so, to be honest, I'd do the exact same thing I did on FanDuel. I would make the same lineup with each of them and just split it in 2.
Yeah, tough to peg for sure. And whatever you've decided is now locked because we are at the lock. I'm in the Central Time Zone, so 7:15 and some change on the clock. Sorry, I usually give y'all a couple minute warning. Hopefully everybody got their lineup submitted. The time snuck up on me there pretty quick. So was actually an interesting showdown slate to talk about, which is better than some of the Thursday night games we've had. Have been some clunkers, but in any case, thanks to all of you for hanging out with us on this Thursday night. Slow night on the sports calendar for the NBA. Though I think there's like 12 or 13 NHL games tonight if you're into that. So, but good football game. Should be fun tonight to see what happens in this AFC East battle. Thanks to TJ for joining me. TJ, anything before we get out of here?
Hit the like button on your way out to make sure you stay tuned to our YouTube feed tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, because Dre and I got 2 shows coming tomorrow, one for NBA, one for NFL for FanDuel Friday. So that's on top of our usual content. So we got lots of stuff coming. Make sure you follow, like, and hit that notification bell.
We won't tell TJ if you decide to wait a day because you don't want the notification bell for TJ's shows tomorrow. No, I'm just teasing. Be sure to check it out. That's good stuff. And TJ cranks out a lot of this video content for us. He's working really hard and does a ton of shows. So appreciate it and show him some love by tuning in to those shows with Andre tomorrow. So until then, we'll go ahead and get out of here. We'll be back tomorrow on Friday with our usual stuff heading up to the big NFL weekend and a big NBA slate for a Friday night. So check back in later for that. Thanks to TJ again for joining me. I am Justin. Thanks to our producer Steve for working hard behind the scenes for us as well. And we hope you all have a great Thursday evening, everybody. Take it easy.